Allies are one of the oldest creature types to have been given support in the Avatar The Last Airbender set. Originally from Zendikar and seen a few more times over the years, these creatures benefit from having other allies enter the battlefield. Our commander, Katara the Fearless, gives us a simple but powerful ability that will benefit all of our ally abilities. If a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. This gives us a Panharmonicon style effect in the command zone, though instead of doubling only enter abilities, she doubles any and all triggered abilities of our allies. That flexibility makes her deceptively powerful. Our deck is rather straightforward. We play ally creatures, look to amass a critical number of them in play, and overwhelm our opponents with our accumulated value. Of our 26 creatures, 24 of them are allies. We have basic foundational cards like the Great Divide Guide and Harabaz Druid, who both offer us mana ramp. The guide turns every land and ally in our deck into a rainbow mana source, and Harabaz Druid gives us a bulk mana dork based on the size of our ally army. Seagate Loremaster can tap to draw us a card for each ally we control. Ondu Cleric gives us life gain each time it or another ally enters, an amount equal to the number of allies we control. This will scale very nicely as we progress our board state. Halimar Excavator mills a target player based on the number of allies we control each time it or another ally we control enter. These kinds of abilities can easily convert into a win condition, considering we have several ways to produce a mass amount of ally tokens. Aang and Katara are one of the strongest board state producers, having an enter and attack trigger to give us X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, where X is the total number of tapped artifacts and creatures we control. This card has so much power in it. It looks to see how many tapped artifacts and creatures we control, and so if we've managed to tap out, this will produce a sizable army of allies. Now, remember those allies we discussed earlier? Ondu Cleric, Halimar Excavator. Each of those tokens will trigger these abilities, and if our commander is in play, those triggers are also doubled. Aang Airbending Master is this deck's inclusion of the experience counter cycle of Bending Masters. When Aang enters, we airbend another target creature, which exiles that creature. While it's exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 generic mana rather than paying its mana cost. Next, whenever one or more creatures we control leave the battlefield without dying, such as being airbend, we get an experience counter. Lastly, at the beginning of our upkeep, we create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each experience counter that we have. Aang, and by extension Appa Steadfast Guardian, offer us a small package of the airbending mechanic. This can be used in 2 ways. We can use it as a temporary removal of our opponent's cards, as they can still recast them later. We can also target our own cards to get additional enter abilities. Because these cards can only be recast for just 2 mana, this can be a great way to cheat mana costs and blink our creatures. Aang at the Crossroads has a unique enter ability that lets us dig 5 cards deep into our library and put a creature with mana value 4 or less onto the battlefield from among them. When another creature we control leaves the battlefield, we then transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep, at which point he becomes Aang Destined Savior, a 4/4 avatar ally with flying and vigilance. He gives our land creatures vigilance, which we don't see much of in this deck, though his final ability allows us to Earthbend 2 at the beginning of combat on our turn. Earthbending allows us to target a land and have it become a 0/0 creature with haste that's still a land, and then we put +1/+1 counters on it equal to the Earthbending value. In Aang's case, that's 2. If a land is made into a creature by Earthbending, dies, or is exiled, it returns to the battlefield tapped as just a land. This is a tremendous threat on its own and serves as one of the many haymakers of the deck. The 2 abilities that will be relevant for our commander are the first, the ability that lets us dig into our deck and grab creatures, and the Earthbending on the transformed side. We have interactive allies at our disposal, like Aang Swift Savior, who has both flash and flying, and as he enters, we airbend one other target permanent or spell. This is a cool approach to a counterspell, exiling the spell and removing it from the stack. It can be played at a later time for 2 mana, but this small hit in tempo and timing might allow us to better prepare for it. Lastly, we can waterbend 8 to transform Aang. Waterbending costs are generally a little on the higher side, but they can be paid for by our creatures and artifacts. Each one of them that we tap reduces the cost by 1 mana. When Aang transforms, he becomes Aang and La, Ocean's Fury, a 5/5 Avatar Spirit ally with Reach and Trample. Whenever they attack, we put a +1/+1 counter onto each tapped creature we control. This is some decent value on a flipped creature, and it does put the +1/+1 counter onto itself. Sokka, Lateral Strategist, gives us card draw whenever we attack with him and one other creature, giving us hand advantage on the attack. If Katara is out as well, we draw twice. Suki, Kyoshi Warrior, gives us a 1/1 white ally creature token that is also tapped and attacking. South Pole Voyager gains us a life the first time this ability resolves as it or another ally enters. The second time, we draw a card. Core Blade Whirl gives our creatures first strike when an ally enters, which can be a great way to ensure our board state becomes unbeatable in combat. Hakoda, Selfless Commander, can help protect our board in a pinch, and he comes equipped with the ability to cast ally spells off of our top deck. Lastly, we have Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, a 3/3 for 5 with Vigilance. As she enters, we create a 1/1 white ally token. We can then Waterbend for X to give creatures we control base power and toughness XX until the end of turn. This is a phenomenal way to finish games, as her ability can be where our mana can be sunk into, and we channel all of our excess resources to bulk up that waterbending number. Think of her as a mirror entity that plays into the ally creature type that we can cheat with the mana costs. We also have a number of cards that benefit our playing of allies in bulk. We are going wide with this list, and so we do have a great deal of creatures in play that will benefit from these cards. Allied Teamwork gives us an ally token and gives us an anthem for our allies. Descendants Path lets us check the top card of our library to see if it's an ally. If it's so, we can play it for free. Kindred Discovery draws us a card whenever our allies enter or attack, being a great source of card draw and possibly the best in the deck. Sokka's Charge gives our board state both Double Strike and Lifelink, providing us with solid resilience against a counterattack. Think of it as a true conviction specifically for this deck. Aura Shards, an all-star, provides us with an artifact and enchantment removal simply by our creatures entering. Since we're on a lot of tokens, this will be easy to trigger. Retreat to Emeria has a landfall ability that gives us an ally each time a land enters under our control. United Front gives us allies based on the value of X, and then we put a +1/+1 counter onto each creature we control. Our deck wants to get some triggered abilities in play early. Getting the Ondu Cleric out early, or the South Pole Voyager, is great as we begin to play our allies. We want to ensure our board state is growing at all times since so many of our cards trigger as allies enter the battlefield. We can get our mana dorks in play to help us ramp into more spells and effectively outpace the rest of the table. An early game Door of Destinies can begin to snowball as we begin casting our allies, causing our creatures to become larger and more threatening. Even something like a 1/1 token can become deadly if it's gotten +4/+4 from a few charge counters on the door. We can utilize our tokens for card draw with cards like Skull Clamp should we be desperate for hand advantage. We have a small package of mass blink spells aimed at getting us more enter the battlefield triggers. Obviously, we cannot blink tokens, but we can aim at our normal creatures to really get some value from these spells. Avatar's Wrath is a board wipe that allows us to pick up to one target creature and then airbend the rest. Until our next turn, our opponents can't cast spells from anywhere but their hands, which means that those creatures that we've airbent away are off limits. Eerie Interlude and Ghostway exiles each of our creatures, and then they return at the beginning of the next end step. This can also be used as a great prevention against board wipes. We can play relatively defensively throughout the beginning of the game, only swinging in when necessary and building up our value engines and our board state. At the critical stage of the game, when we have a huge army, we can pivot to an aggressive attack and take out our opponents in effectively one shot. Katara the Fearless is a fun commander deck that might seem unassuming on her one simple ability, but her potential scales as we build up a board state of ally creatures. We can utilize some powerful abilities like milling opponents, padding our life total, and ramping us into even more allies to secure us a victory. But for now, that will wrap up our look at Katara the Fearless. What are your favorite cards to include in her deck? Do you have some spicy suggestions we didn't mention here? For the full deck list, check out the Archidect link in the video description. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, likes and shares are the best ways to help support the channel. Subscribe so you never miss a new brew, and as always, thank you for watching.